Chapter 2 Good Neighbors. One snowy day, Joe went out to the garden to clean the path. The Marches' old brown house was next to Mr. Lawrence, with a low wall separating the two gardens. Joe often thought that the Lawrence house was tidier and more beautiful than theirs, but too quiet. She hadn't seen Laurie since the party and wondered if he ever felt lonely in that big house. Then, looking up, she saw him at the upstairs window. He seemed sad, so she made a little snowball and threw it at Laurie's window. The boy smiled and opened the window. "Hey, are you sick?" shouted Joe. "I'm better now, thank you. I've had a bad cold and haven't been out for a week." "I'm sorry. What do you do all day?" "Nothing. I'm so bored." "Does nobody come and visit you?" "No. Will you come?" "If Mother will let me, I'll go and ask her. Close the window and wait for me. I'll be back soon." Joe ran to look for her mother, who happily said yes. A minute later, Joe was in Laurie's room with a cake from Meg and Beth's kittens to play with. "I often see you all sitting around the fire in the evening with your mother," said Laurie. "She seems so sweet." He was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, I haven't got a mother." Joe felt sorry for him and said, "Instead of looking at us through the window, you must come and visit. Everybody would love to meet you. Wouldn't your grandpa let you?" "I think so. It's just that he doesn't want me to bother strangers," said Laurie. "We aren't strangers. We're your neighbors. And you wouldn't bother us at all," said Joe. "Grandpa isn't bad. He just lives among his books. Then there's Mr. Brooke, my teacher. But he doesn't stay here, so I'm usually at home on my own." "Well, that's no good. You ought to go out more." "Forget about being shy," said Joe in her usual direct way. Laurie smiled, happy to have this new friend. Joe told him about Aunt March, with her talking parrot and spoiled dog. She also discovered that Laurie loved books like her. "Come and see our library," said Laurie. "You needn't be afraid. Grandpa is out." "I'm not afraid of anything," said Joe, laughing. The library was a lovely room full of books, pictures, and statues. Laurie left Joe alone there for a moment to speak to his daughter, while she was looking at a big picture of Laurie's grandpa on the wall. She heard the door opening behind her. Without turning, she said, "I'm sure I shouldn't be afraid of your grandpa. He's got kind eyes." "Thank you, madam," said the man's voice. It was Laurie's grandfather. Joe turned, her face red. For once, she didn't know what to say. "So, you're not afraid of me, hey?" "Not much, sir." "So, you like me?" said the old man, laughing. Joe relaxed and began to chat happily. "You're like your grandfather, young girl. He was a kind, honest man. Tell your mother. "I'll come and see her one day," said Mr. Lawrence. Joe certainly would. And she couldn't wait to tell her sisters all about her special day at the Lawrence. A few days later, Mr. Lawrence came to see Mrs. March, and they became good neighbors. He said that her girls could come and visit any time, as he was happy Laurie had such good friends. Meg loved walking in his garden. Joe loved his library. Amy tried to copy his pictures. Only Beth was too shy to go to the house. Then, one day, Mr. Lawrence came and asked Beth if she would come and play his piano sometimes, since Laurie didn't want to play anymore. Beth was so excited that she forgot to be shy, and putting her small hand in his, walked to his house. "I had a little girl once, with eyes like yours," said Mr. Lawrence, as he led Beth to the piano. After that, Beth went to play every day and forgot to be afraid. Weeks later, she decided to make slippers for the old man to thank him. When they were finished, she left them in his study with a short, simple note. 2 days later, a piano arrived for Beth with its letter. "Dear Madam, my slippers are beautiful. This piano once belonged to the little granddaughter I lost. I want you to have it now. Your friend, James Lawrence." To everyone's surprise, shy little Beth went straight to Mr. Lawrence in his study. Remembering the little girl had lost, she put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. The old man was so pleased that he set her on his knee, and feeling as if he had found his granddaughter again, they talked together until it was time for her to go home. While Beth had made a new friend, Amy wasn't happy at all. First, her teacher had been angry with her for eating sweets in class. Then, one Saturday afternoon, Amy saw Meg and Joe getting ready to go out. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Little girls shouldn't ask questions," answered Joe. "Oh, Meg, please tell me. I'm bored and want to come too," said Amy. "I'm sorry, Amy, I can't tell you. It's a secret," said Meg kindly. Laurie had invited the girls to the theater, and Joe wanted to have fun, not look after Amy. "Look, Amy," said Joe angrily, "you're too young to come with us." Then Laurie arrived, and as the two girls left, Amy shouted, "You'll be sorry for this, Joe." Joe didn't realize how serious her sister was until the next day. Joe sat down at her desk to write another story in her little book, but couldn't find it. She had written 3 short stories so far and wanted to finish the book for her father's return. She looked in the drawer. Nothing. Then she remembered Amy's words. She ran downstairs, shouting, "Amy, where's my book?" "I don't know, and I don't care," said Amy. "Don't tell lies, Amy. What have you done with it?" "I burned it in the fire last night," said Amy. Jo had never felt so angry. She shook Amy's heart, saying, "I'll never forgive you for this." Meg ran to help Amy, while Beth went to Jo. That evening, Amy tried to say she was sorry, but Jo refused to speak to her. Jo was so like her mother. Mrs. March used to get angry a lot when she was a girl, but over the years, she had learned to control herself, and now, instead of shouting, she kept her lips shut tight. Next day, Jo decided to go skating on the frozen river with Laurie. Amy followed her because she still wanted Jo to forgive her. At the river, Jo saw Amy coming, but she didn't wait for her. Laurie was in front and said, "Don't go skating in the middle. The ice is too thin." Jo heard him, but Amy didn't. She was still too far away. Then there was a terrible scream. Jo turned and saw Amy in the middle of the river. The ice was breaking, and Amy was disappearing into the water below. Jo was so frightened, she couldn't move. Luckily, Laurie was there. He pulled Amy out of the icy water, and they got her home before she froze to death. That night, Jo held her little sister until Amy fell asleep. Then Jo cried in her mother's arms, while Mrs. March kissed Jo's pale, worried face and told her everything would be all right.